Welcome to the MetaDAO conference, and thank you, Rinko, for giving that great introduction. I'm going to talk about, basically, when I was building this deck, I was like at the top of my Notion doc, I was like, what do I want the watcher to walk away feeling? Which is basically like, holy shit, I'm really bullish on MetaDAO. I should be spending more time on MetaDAO. And so, to kind of drive that point forward, I'm going to talk about a few things. One is just the history of MetaDAO. I think, we have a lot of new futards who weren't necessarily there from the beginning or the origin. And it's kind of a cool story. I want to talk about strategy, like how MetaDAO can win, and then reasons why we might be early. So I guess to start with me, the progenitor. Kind of like becoming more doxed. I actually, so my like background before MetaDAO was I got hired out of high school as the first person on PayPal's crypto team, and actually was like also the first person working on the stablecoin. How I got into markets was I grew up in New York City. Both my parents worked on Wall Street. Before I worked in Ethereum DeFi, I worked at Yearn and CowSwap. So like there's this thing called Milkman that Aave and ENS and some other large DAOs have used to swap through CowSwap on chain, and I built that. So like for me, the original impetus was like I'd been into markets ever since I was a kid, talking to my parents, and traded in markets, and had realized, hey, like markets can actually be quite smart. It's hard to beat the market. If you just trade like just based on like, oh, I'm going to outsmart the market, it doesn't know anything, like you're probably going to lose money. And then also having worked in DeFi and like, I think I also saw working in a big company that organizations can be quite broken. And so when I discovered Robin Hanson's idea of decision markets, or like having markets make the world's decisions, I was like, holy shit, I need to work on this. And so I spent, like, this is while I was working at Yearn, I spent about a year learning Solana, trying to find the initial futards, and then building the smart contracts. A year is like too long, but I didn't really know how to do anything. I didn't know how to build new stuff. It's actually, Nick, can we use the old, where's Nick? I kind of want to use the old deck. Michael, can we connect that? Because it's got the images in it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this was actually the first MetaDAO UI. It was really, really ugly. And you had there was two order books where you could trade, place limit orders on whether a proposal would pass or fail, like how you would value it. So that was kind of the initial thing. And then in the first half of 2024, a few things happened. So probably most importantly was Colin joined as co-founder. Colin, his background before was he was actually one of the biggest market makers on long tail stablecoins, and is like the dynamo behind MetaDAO. Coliseum put in 250K. We used that 250K actually to go to Malaysia because we were working with some contractors from outside the US, and it was just like a convenient place to go for visas and whatnot. And that was the first office that we worked in. It was two-person, me and Colin. It was $150 a month. And I don't think I've ever been as productive as I was in that office for that month. And then we got a 5-person office, and then we built a less ugly version of MetaDAO. And we got our first 3 initial customers were Drifts, Dean's List, and this thing called FutureDAO. And it's now ironic, like now with drift rebanding, MetaDAO has actually outlasted all of them. But at the time, it felt like, holy crap, like we're this small little thing working with these, I mean, especially Drift, like big customer. And then, so once we like proved out that, like got those 3 initial customers, we spent the second half of 2024, actually came back in San Francisco in July and raised $2.2 million led by Paradigm, and then moved here. Colin and I did, and started building out a team. So our focus was on DAOs as a service. Like because yeah, that's the obvious thing to build if you're building this new decision market system. And so Jito, we got to make a fee switch, an important fee switch decision through decision markets. I think the big win was we got Sanctum, which at the time I think was like a $300 million project, to come to MetaDAO and to full send decision markets and Futarchy. And then we realized that wasn't really working. So like even with Sanctum, who like our thesis before this was like, if we just get one big customer to full send Futarchy, then it'll all work. And it wasn't really working. Like they weren't really getting value out of decision markets. Like they were basically just like bringing in this software to tell them what to do, which is like kind of uncomfortable if you don't get any tangible benefits. And at the time, DAO's fun was popping off, and we were like, hey, ICOs are actually kind of a perfect fit because huge problem is rugs. And so, yeah, we pivoted to ICOs in the first half of 2025. It was really hard to find initial ICOs. We did Mountain Capital, which raised $5.8 million. That was our first raise. Ended up getting liquidated, like basically didn't work, but at least returned capital. OmniPair was like the first real project that we did, raised $1.1 million. And then also a really important thing that happened in the first half of 2025 was Thea getting aligned with MetaDAO and becoming a participant in the ecosystem. And then I'd say the second half of 2025, like second half of last year, that was a fun time. That was, if you're here, that was like MetaDAO season. Like Avicii went to $100 million. Everything was getting super oversubscribed. Umbra had $155 million of commits for what was supposed to be like a $750K raise. And then, yeah, like literally everything on MetaDAO just raised a ton of money. Solomon raised $8 million. Ranger raised $8 million. MetaDAO raised a $10 million raise, another round led by Paradigm. And that was fun. And then there were some things that were less fun. So yeah, Haru Pay was an ICO on MetaDAO, didn't fill. It ended up getting $2 million of a $3 million raise. It was really probably like $1 million of organic demand. Ranger Finance got liquidated by decision markets. In my view, it was like actually necessary, but it still is not ever a fun thing to go through. And then, yeah, we kind of entered an on-chain bull market. So like, it's not just MetaDAO. Like if you look at Meteora volume over time, there's like at the start of 2026, like volume kind of fell off a cliff. It went down about 80%. And so as a result of that, we've been kind of like adjusting and rebuilding. Actually, yeah, I wanted to include some more images. So one thing is we hired Mitchell as head of founder sourcing. I think he's been helping a ton on finding high quality founders, including Lasso, who just raised on MetaDAO, Credible, which is about to raise on MetaDAO. Both are like, in my view, like some of the best deals that we've done. Really high quality founders building like tangible businesses with like path to venture scale outcome. Connor King also joined the ecosystem. He's helped us figure out like the institutional side and getting these raises filled with liquid funds, because yeah, if you can't get retail, the other participant is liquid funds. We've hired out a couple of engineers, someone who is staff at XMTP, someone who was head of protocol engineering at Hivemapper, who kind of believe in MetaDAO and are helping us scale the system and like create a reliable user experience. And then, yeah, and now we're in the second half of 2026. And so the question is like, how do we go from where MetaDAO is today to becoming like a global scale system and that has lots of capital and, dare I say, like a multi-billion or deca-billion-dollar business ourselves? And so I think that the main focus right now is getting non-crypto founders to raise on MetaDAO. And that's, I like the focus there is doing small raises on the consumer side, because there's like a very clear value prop, right? If you are like these app mafia type people don't really raise venture, and there's a few reasons for that. One is that maybe venture doesn't like to invest in them because consumer is like hard to underwrite. And then also there's this problem of generally the motivation of a lot of these founders is to get liquidity. Like they want to build a business that's big enough that they can drive a Lambo. And Silicon Valley doesn't, like the traditional venture structure doesn't allow them to do that. You aren't traditionally able to get liquidity until at least a Series B, maybe a Series C via secondaries. And we also have like a very clear value to them, or like as a VC would say, we have a right to win those deals, which is that we can bring them users. The people who raise on this platform can be initial users of your product. And I think, yeah, what we need to do to get there is we're doing a new site that's going to be like more retail, like less crypto native friendly. We need Futarchy needs to like, I mean, I think it'll probably still exist as a separate site, but we need to integrate a faster accelerated path into the MetaDAO site itself, because it feels like we've gotten the feedback that Futarchy feels too degen and too crypto native. And then I think the most important thing is distribution, right? Like Mitchell and I need to like find these people and convince them to raise on MetaDAO. And that's, yeah, what we're working on. So another thing that I think we need to do to scale is reduce entropy in the system. As in, like a big reason why there's founder friction or investor friction of participating in MetaDAO is like chaos or unpredictability. And I'm going to talk later about exactly how we do this, because there's like a bunch of things we can do. But I think, yeah, as we can provide more founder certainty and more investor certainty, then that will help us, yeah, onboard both founders and investors. And then, yeah, ownership ventures is another big thing that's happening right now. Going to be led by David and his co-founder Josep, who are both former like successful entrepreneurs, and are going to be running an activist fund that participates in all exclusively MetaDAO, and also helps us doing those non-crypto raises, because we can guarantee that some amount of capital will show up to underwrite the deal. And yeah, so the last thing I'm going to talk about in this short talk is like reasons why you might be early. And yeah, why I think if you're in MetaDAO or like excited about MetaDAO, you should be even more excited. And so yeah, one data point is the biggest equity crowdfunding platform in the world is called WeFunder. 6 years in, they had done $70 million raised. And MetaDAO has done $40 million raised 1 year in, and most of that done in like a smaller period of time, like about half the year. And I think that's like a product of two things. One is liquidity is actually a serious value prop if you're running a crowdfunding platform. Like crowdfunding platforms, I mean, there's a bunch of problems actually, but a huge one is retail does not want to hold things for 7 years to IPO. And so most of these platforms don't actually like have users. Like I've spoken to, yeah, we spoke to like the former CEO of the not GoFundMe, the other one, Indiegogo. Yeah, and he talked about how really these platforms don't have users because like people don't come back to the platform, and they have to get the founders who raise to just tap their existing networks, and they just like help them tap their existing networks. Versus if you have liquidity, there's like immediate feedback loop of like, yeah, you can be liquid, and it's a better product experience, I think. But then we also, like a big problem that these liquid crowdfunding platforms or like ICOs have had in the past is rugs, and I think MetaDAO has so far been successful at mitigating those. And then, yeah, here's an analogy that I like to think about, which is like, I think OpenAI, like MetaDAO is kind of like OpenAI of decision markets, right? Like OpenAI was all about developing single player intelligence, like AGI. It's like this model that you throw tokens in, and it predicts which tokens will be the best to come out. MetaDAO is building, like decision markets are kind of multiplayer intelligence. They're like intelligence for coordinating groups. And that means that we need to follow a different playbook, which is we can't do what they did, which is just like sit in a lab for 7 years and continuously iterate on our model and then eventually release it to the world. We actually need to develop the intelligence by like cultivating an ecosystem around MetaDAO, developing, like making sure that there are funds trading around MetaDAO, making sure there are companies like 01 Resolved or Ownership Media around MetaDAO that are like propagating information. But it is like the same thing. Like AGI and decision markets are both world-bending technologies, and MetaDAO is at the forefront of decision markets, which is pretty awesome. And then, yeah, here's last thing, which is an anecdote. This was the Scalar Capital Summit in 2019, which was also held in San Francisco. And yeah, these are some of these like DeFi heavyweights. This was guys, he ran a project called Dharma. Most of you probably haven't heard of it. He ended up as the CTO of Magic Eden, but it was like a cool DeFi project. And then most people have probably heard of DYDX and Robert Leshner. And it was, yeah, a similar vibe to this. It probably had about the same number of people, maybe a little less, at the summit. It was in San Francisco. At this point, DeFi wasn't really a thing. This was pre-DeFi summer. And this little head right here is me. I was there. And this feels like the whole decision market ecosystem feels like early Ethereum DeFi did. I think because it's got like the same combination of you have some really smart, talented people that are trying to move the thing forward. And you have fundamental reasons as to why it would work. And you run into the same problem, which is like any new financial ecosystem, you've got to bootstrap like liquidity and interests, right? Like if you're building, like DeFi had this problem of like people aren't trading, and so there wasn't liquidity on chain, and so people aren't trading. And on MetaDAO, it's like, oh, there's not that many startups yet, and so I don't have to learn this thing, and so I don't have to learn this thing, so I'm probably not going to participate, versus like we have to reach some critical mass, and then inshallah it will be like great. So yeah, that's pretty much my intro talk. So yeah, thanks again for coming, and very excited to be building MetaDAO right now.